You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Blake, and with me today I have two extremely fine gentlemen from an extremely fine retail establishment known as 5 Star Guitars. 5 Star's been around for about 25 years here in the Portland area. They run a fantastic shop that I definitely recommend you stopping at if you find yourself in the area. I mention it on this episode, but I haven't actually talked to enough retailers on this podcast. I talk to a lot of people who build guitars or make guitar products, but not enough from the perspective of the dealers. I don't talk to those people often enough, and I am making an effort to change that because their perspective is super important, and I think that a good music retail shop is an important component of a musical community. I really do. I think we all have memories of going to the guitar store, and we have good ones and we have bad ones and we have in between, but the guitar store is an integral part of the guitar playing experience, and I haven't really focused on it enough. These gentlemen run a great business. They really do a lot for us at Stringjoy, and they're just super, super cool dudes. So I really wanted to get them over to the Shred Shed to sit down and have this conversation. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This is one of the trippier Patreon conversations I've had in a while. We go for quite a while, and we go into some really weird places. So if you like weird conversations, this Patreon episode is the one for you. And speaking of Patreon, this month is a really good month to join because towards the end of the month, something very special is happening. You'll hear about it publicly, but there's something extra special happening for patrons, and I can't really say much more than that at this point, but it's coming up here at the end of September, and being a patron of the show gets you a little extra special opportunity. So that's all I'll be able to say about that for now. But additionally, you'll get bonus episodes and all that good stuff, the ad-free feed, all of that wonderful stuff over on Patreon, and it's only $5 a month. So check that out. I really appreciate everybody who does support the show because it is enormously helpful. I can't even tell you how much it means to me that you guys would do that. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into this episode with Jeremie and Geoff from 5 Star Guitars. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. Today, I'm here with Jeremie and Geoff from 5 Star Guitars, one of the finest retailers in the Portland area and therefore the world. So here we are. What's up, guys? Yeah, we're here in the Shred Shed today. We're doing another in-person. These are becoming slightly more frequent, and I'm really enjoying it. But I've been out to their store. They're a great retailer for Stringjoy, and I just have not talked to enough store owners, honestly, because I've talked to a lot of pedal builders, a lot of guitar makers, every side of the industry practically except for retail. So you're only the third retailer that's ever been on in like however 370 episodes or whatever it is at this point. So
well, we're honored.
I want you guys to come on and tell your story. Like, I don't know the full story of 5 Star, honestly. I just walked in one day to this magical place, and I know it didn't probably all start out. You didn't just snap your fingers and have a store like that.
No, it's a 25-year overnight success.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary, so we've been thinking a lot about, just kind of reflecting on how it all came to be. So it was founded in 98 and by a gentleman by the name of Ken Potter. Mm-hmm. And I started working there in early 2001, so it was just a couple years into it. And when did you come on?
Same thing. I was trying to date myself as well, and it was I remember it was pre 9/11, And so that was like, I had just started teaching lessons there. And, you started lessons as well, right? And then did you start retail and then do lessons?
It was initially retail for like the first, 6 months or something. And then I mentioned to Ken, I was like, hey, I've been teaching for a while. Looks like you got some room. So,
So I did the opposite. I started, I took over somebody. There was a teacher with a roster full of students that moved away, and I took over his roster of students. And, but I do remember I was like, man, this is great. I'm starting to teach. I got a full roster of students. This is fun. I'm doing the thing on my own, whatever. And then 9/11 happened. And so I can date it to just before 9/11.
Wow.
So we probably started right around the same time.
Yeah. It was like February.
And you were both teachers there. Is that still a big part of the formula out there? Do you do a lot of lessons? Or?
We still do a lot of lessons. And I still teach out there like one afternoon a week. I really still enjoy that. And it was, lessons kind of changed my life, hanging out in guitar shops, not unlike 5-Star Guitars. And so, that's still a big part of it. So we do a lot of lessons, a lot of repair for instruments and amplifiers, and then also retail. So, we came on in 2001. That original location we moved out of in 2006.
Okay.
We were on 185th and Cornell. Yeah. And then we bought it from Ken. Like our other partner, John Paul Simonet, Jeep, and Jeremie and I bought it from Ken. We took over February 1st of 2012. And so it's been 11 years.
I think that's how the math. 11.
Yeah. So it's been really exciting. And during those years, we expanded to 2 stores for a little while, and then consolidated into our current location and that building that you've seen.
Yeah.
But it's been really exciting. And in those years too, we started selling online, which was, really exciting and is now a big part of our business. We're selling all over the country. And it's just grown. I mean, there was a time like when we first started working there where it was slow enough that everybody that worked there could kind of do a little bit of everything. I was doing a little bit of guitar repair. Ken was showing us how to do that. And I was doing a little ordering, and it was a really cool experience. It's actually the only guitar shop that I've ever worked at.
Wow.
Same with you?
Same here. Yeah. I've had a lot of other weird jobs. But
yeah. A lot of other weird jobs.
Haven't we?
Sure.
Haven't we all? Yeah.
But, so in the time that we've owned it, there's been, it's really scaled up. And so there's a lot more kind of diversification of labor, the repair people just do repair, and the lesson people just do lessons. It's an exciting time. I mean, we've managed to continue kind of expanding our customer base, but also the services that we're providing and the lines that we're carrying. And it's been, I don't know, pretty steady growth. The last few years have been exceptional growth. We found ourselves, initially, in 2020, not sure what was going to happen. Everybody else.
Yeah. We had the same existential crisis everybody else did in March of 2020.
Yeah. We were just we weren't sure what was going to happen. And
I wonder if you did what we did. I remember here in Oregon City, I was walking around the Safeway parking lot completely empty because I was the designated grocery getter. I've told this story a few times on the podcast, so apologies. But I was the designated grocery getter because I was like, the theory, was, well, if I get sick, I can come out here. And if my wife gets sick, we're all just hosed. We're just all hosed. So I was like, I'll go get the groceries. So we had no idea what was going on at that point.
Yeah, we were still washing our mail at that point.
We're like, I don't know. They told me this. I don't know. And so I was walking around that empty parking lot. I was pretty confident that was safe. And talking to Scott, and he's like, we got like 6 months and we're just done. We're completely done. And that was 6 months of like, okay, at this point, then we got to scale this back, and then we got to scale this back. There was like a plan, but it was like, we got 6 months and then we're just completely gone. And everything we've worked for is
I would have been happy with a 6 month
Yeah,
plan. I felt like we had
shorter.
about 3 weeks.
well, that included me flying down and like doing things too. So there was like, yeah.
I felt like we had like 3 weeks. Like we were, I think it's one of the things, I mean, this wouldn't surprise you at all, knowing enough people around town and in the industry, like the size or scale of which people perceive a business to be. Oh man. It's like, oh man, dude, no, there's only like 6 people making all this stuff. Yeah. Right. And the same in a lot of ways is true for a retail store. Like you see an online presence that you appreciate, or you think, man, they're just really, that website's awesome. So there must just be thousands of people that work there making this thing run. And no, there's 2 back there doing the thing. So, similarly, you operate on kind of a shoestring budget for just about everything. And so, and it's a cash flow. Retail's like a cash flow business. So when the cash stops flowing, you're screwed pretty quickly. Well, and your overhead's really high. Overhead is really high. And when everything shut down, and that was like, we would have days where we're just like, a snow day most years was like, it ruins the month, right? Like your revenue for the month is now measurably lower for one snow day. Totally. And online sales aren't going to overcompensate for that. They're part of the plan. So that in-store sales just went down by that amount. So it was unfathomable. I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of being shut down for 6 weeks. There was just no way. We can't, one day hurts, 6 weeks. I'll set my watch now and we won't be here. Right. And so the first part of it, and then, similarly for just the health reasons, COVID reasons, like all the employees go home and it's the 3 of us in a shutdown showroom floor. I'm in this corner, Geoff's in that corner, Jeep's in that corner. And it's a pretty big store. Yeah. It's a big store. And we're just shouting across the room at each other because we don't know how, we're trying to be safe. And we don't know at this point. We don't know. So I have a couple pictures of me just sitting in a dark showroom in the middle of the day on my laptop, just sitting in a corner with a mask on. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And, underneath my mask, I'm just terrified. Sure. And so to see, the amount of help though that we've gotten, and I think this would be something that that any other business owner knows, that is, you've got the better team you have around you of not just industry friends, but just, we've got advisors and and like a financial advisor, and we've got business coaches and stuff like that. Like we're not completely alone, right? No matter what we do. And so to see those people rally around us kind of got us through the initial thing of like, okay, no, actually we can maybe make a plan through this. And then when everybody comes back and that demand for music skyrocketed, it was like, holy smokes, we're on a whole different trajectory now of customer demand, and scaling the website went from like something that we did to like just integral, central. We redesigned the flow of product from receiving it in the door to when it hit the sales floor, around getting it on the website too. And everything, we just reconfigured the business, like going around, like receive, then like take photos and then go out on the floor type of thing. Right. And it used to be, we were showroom first. Right. And so, in order to set up the websites, we bought the business. There was no web presence. And so we were kind of making it up as we go and trying to catch up. Even in 2012, there was. Oh, no.
Well, there was a website, but it was like kind of like a business card.
Okay.
Right? It had the phone number and
and a 6-year-old photo, Sure.
Yeah.
Right? So what we got was like, fivestarguitars.com existed, but nothing was happening. Sure. And, so then it was, especially moving to the new location, even, now we're in 2017, 2018, and it's still just like, okay, let's see, this thing hanging on that hook over there is not online yet. Let's grab it, go back, write it up, take pictures, set it back out for sale. And so we were playing catch up with what was on the sales floor to listed online. And that did flip almost overnight to like, okay, this thing has to almost go online first. Yeah. Right. And then it can hit the showroom once it's on. But So a lot of stuff like that just got kind of almost inverted for us. And I think that's the thing that has been through all of it has kept us so engaged in our business and running it the way we do. And the people, like Geoff talked about, when we started, I was doing the same thing. I was teaching lessons, and in between lessons, I was fixing guitars, and then I would go out and sell strings, and then I'd go back and teach another lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all did everything. And I think the way in which we're watching people grow that have worked for us for a long time and watch the business model change and be willing to let it change or steer the change, or, just watching it morph from one thing to another. And as it grows, has been the thing that kept us engaged for so long. It's not, there's no set it and forget it for us.
No. And unfortunately, I see that in music retail, maybe even a little more frequently than the music gear business at large, which is interesting, right? Because one of the things I've noticed is when Taylor and Martin started selling direct recently, they didn't only start selling direct, right? They just started selling direct. There was a couple stores that I actually had people contact me about, like, oh, my local store just went out of business, and they're citing that as the reason. And I'm like, if that's the only thing keeping you open, that's an interesting, that says something, right? And some people refer to that as, like, I've heard some brands call it, like, well, that retailer's just a shelf. They're not actively doing things the way you guys are to try to actually be a place that people want to come to. Outside of having all the cool stuff. You have to have the cool stuff, but you also are a cool place to go.
Yeah. So the thing that you're getting at is like, I think that is where the future of the relevancy of everybody is. Like, what people are trying to do is connect with customers, and we're all not quite sure how to do that together yet. Because manufacturers are starting to realize, some of them, that like there are ways in which they can try and engage directly. And there's a lot of stores, like you're saying, that are just putting something on a shelf. They've done their part now.
Right.
They bought the thing, they hung it on the wall, and then now that they're done, they played their role. If people buy it or they don't, it's of no consequence to them. It's not my fault your product didn't sell.
Right.
And manufacturers are trying to go around that mentality. So like, we believe in our product more than you do, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so, but there's, from our point of view too, it is really hard to realize that my strongest competition for selling a Fender guitar might be Fender. That doesn't exist many places.
Right.
Even if other industries are selling things
like
direct,
Whirlpool doesn't do that to their, appliance retailers, for instance.
Right. And even if a place did, even if you could buy an appliance direct, there's still some sort of symbiotic support relationship in those other industries that doesn't yet exist. So I think that's the opportunity. Our industry is really slow to catch up. A lot of times,
slow. Yeah.
Like, just now starting to catch on treating content creators the same way you would treat an artist. They still want the arena touring guitarist to be the spokesperson, and somebody with a podcast isn't it yet. And it takes a forward-thinking person at the company to connect the dots. So like, no, actually this podcast is reaching more people than that band does. And maybe that person is the one I need to be focused on partnering with.
Right. Or not necessarily even more, but more of the right demographic sometimes. It's like, okay, sure, this artist fills an arena, but like, how many Ed Sheeran fans actually play guitar as a percentage? It's a pretty small percentage versus how many people, watch Rick Beato that play guitar. It's pretty high, Like, it's a different thing. But you guys are uniquely positioned to be able to spearhead some of that stuff, I think, because you have such robust departments in every aspect of a music retail operation. So, and you do things, like I said, you actively do things to get people to come to the store, not just, well, hopefully somebody shows up today.
What's an experience?
Yeah. We're really trying to make it, I feel like it is like sort of a hub for musical activity, and that there's a place for people that are just getting started or that have been playing a long time. We just kind of came up with this catchphrase. It was like, we buy, we sell, we teach, we repair.
Yeah.
And it was something that we were kind of workshopping. And, a lot of times we're trying to do events and bring people down, not just to get their money. It's not like a President's Day sale. Come down
Sure.
here and, we're
Sunday.
Yeah, totally. We need this.
Your voice sounds great for that. That was good.
Right?
Thank you.
But
If you need any ads, let me know.
Right.
Write that down. That's,
But that's one of the things that's been kind of nice about, recently we've started to do more events and stuff and working with manufacturers, and we've got a big showroom so we can host a lot of people, and
Having dudes from Slayer down,
yeah, man, Gary Holt, that was
so
he
cool.
was great.
I didn't know that was happening. I would have been there. I was like, oh man, look at that.
Yeah, his approach to it was cool. Like, okay, just briefly,
Yeah,
I've
go ahead.
never seen this before at a clinic or any of these, but he came in and he was like showing people songs and whatever, but he was also letting people play his guitar.
Oh yeah.
And the thing about that really struck me, and I talked to him briefly about it afterward. I was like, those people are going to remember this for the rest of their lives.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, like that, we had a great turnout for it, but, especially those people that like actually grabbed his guitar, and he was just so cool about it, so encouraging, and it really came across as genuine, and, I loved it. It's, everything that's great about one of those sorts of events. And so it's exciting to be able to do that stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But so retail is like a big conversation internally at Stringjoy, especially, right? And Scott's really forward thinking. That's an advantage that we have, is he's always looking at like the next thing, 5 steps ahead if he can. And one thing that we keep looking, is he looks at greater trends, like big box retail is not doing so great. Certain aspects aren't doing so great as a whole. But one thing we've discussed a lot is, while music retail is a super difficult space to be in, it's really, really hard. The thing is, like you said, if you make it an event, you make it not just an event in the way we just talked about, but if you make it like going to go get strings is fun. What's the excuse that we all have used to go to the guitar store? Well, I got to go get some strings, so might walk out of there with the pedal, but also I have to go get strings because otherwise I can't play my guitars that I already have. And I also won't get to look at new ones that I might want to buy. So you make it an experience that is enjoyable. I don't think that aspect will ever really go away. I don't think anybody cares about going to Target to buy their laundry soap.
Target's not really an experience.
It's not an experience you want to have.
Right. There you go.
Right.
But going to a guitar shop, a good guitar shop, that's something people who play guitar want to do. It's not like, oh man, I have to go here.
Well, it's an opportunity too that any guitar shop, and I like ours especially, but any guitar shop I've been to, which by the way, I love going to guitar shops. We're not. It's competitive. It's difficult to be in a space where the margins are low and it's a niche market, demographic that you're selling to and all that. But I still when I get the chance to go to another guitar store, I want to go in and experience it because it's different from mine. And why do I own one? Because I love guitar stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to make one that I love, but also we've got a bunch of customers in a whole area. Geographically, an area to serve and try and create an experience for them that they will also love. But the idea of giving somebody an experience when they walk in the shop that they're going to remember, that's what we're trying to create with the smallest purchase that you can make. And that's what I love to experience when I go someplace else. And every shop takes on the personality of the person who owns it or runs it. That's what I mean by we're no different. Is we unintentionally changed so many things that not because it's like, well, that was Ken and this is us. It was just like, okay, this isn't working. What can we do to make it work better
or
for
just
us?
Aesthetic choices, like, oh, I like blue better or whatever. Right. It doesn't matter what it is. Like you're going to gravitate towards things that you like.
But there's so many, and I think the thing that the Guitar Center model was there's one in every major city, and when you walk in, you know what you're going to get because they're all the same. But there is something to be said for shops like ours where when you walk in, what you know you're going to get is a unique experience, not a replicate, not a repeatable experience, unless you go back to that same shop over and over. But every place that you go, you're gonna experience something different from the last independent, unique guitar shop that you went to, and trying to create a destination center, for yourself, where it's like people come to town, come to Portland. One of the places on my bucket list before I leave this town is to go out and visit 5-Star, because there is, I can go to a million cities with guitar shops, but I can't go to that one anywhere else.
Yes.
So I got to go to that one. And I think that's the part that will never go away, because you can have we just mentioned, there's plenty of places where there's stuff hanging on the walls. There's no experience happening when you walk in there.
Yeah. And it's actually incredible. I now am paying more attention to this, which you'd think I would have forever, but now more than ever, there are so many stores. There's way more than I think you would think. If you asked me to list like the stores to go to in Portland, there's probably twice as many as the ones I would list off the top of my head. Right. And so like we were just driving out to Boring, and I was literally talking to Scott on the phone while we were driving. I was like, oh, there's a store I need to visit. Apparently, I had no idea there was a guitar store in Boring.
We just drove past a place called Wally's.
Yeah, Wally's.
Yeah, so we were driving by. I was like, oh, guitar shop.
There's one.
Well, and Wally's is one that I've like drove by my entire life, and I've went in like a couple times. It's mostly like band and orchestra stuff. But as I'm telling you that, I'm like, I was like 12 last time I walked in there. And I live here. I should go into Wally's and see. And Adrian's used to be where that restaurant right across from Wally's is. There was a guitar shop called Adrian's in there.
Adrian's Music?
Yeah.
Like Robert Adrian.
Yeah.
All right, so we've become friends with Robert.
Oh, you have?
So
crazy.
Many of the things, like I'd say we're competitive in a way of like we're all competing with the same customers.
Is he somewhere else now?
He does.
Well, he's he's totally out of the industry.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was a long story about how we met him, but yeah, we've hung out with him a number of times, and just talking about the biz and kind of his story, and we go visit guitar shops in any city that we're at, wherever we are, just to go check it out. I feel like, aside from being, having hopefully a great experience for people, it also is a kind of a community, the people that shop with us, and we're trying to give people the same experience online, and that hopefully, if you're a guitar player and you're in the Portland metro area, it's on your list of like, hey, I want to check out 5-Star Guitars while we're in town. Like I've seen those guys, but I've never been in, or I want to go see them again while we're here. It's exciting, but I feel like we have a really good relationship with everybody, like locally, and that's the way it should be. It's competitive, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't have to be. Well,
that's what I'm getting at, is like just most of the stores that you would put us in the category, like locally, what are the ones like 5-Star that you would go to, and your list of top 5, and we probably know and have a good relationship with all 5 of them. And that's what we appreciate about it. It's like that would be one thing that I think our industry has that not a lot of places have, is like, if there was a bike shop across town and you've got your bike shop, and you might not be, you might be saying things about the other bike shop.
I've actually seen that with bike shops specifically.
Right.
So.
And with us, it's like, man, this is like, it would be awesome from a financial standpoint if there was only one guitar store in Portland and 5-Star was the only place you ever went to buy everything. But that's not healthy for music. There needs to be some variety and some selection and a buzz around there being a community. And while we would love to be everybody's favorite, that's the goal. It's not healthy for a place to have only one venue, only one guitar shop, only one. That doesn't create the overall community buzz.
It can create stagnation.
It creates stagnation. Right. And so while we are in a lot of ways competing for the same customers and, and attention, we also recognize that like the coexistence of all of us, like the rising tide raises all of us. And so having a good relationship with the other store owners is pretty crucial to that. Like we all see each other at the same events, and in a lot of ways, it's like, hey, dude, like what's working for you? Did you try this line out yet? How are these things selling for you? Are they doing okay? And there's some shared information that I don't think would happen in other industries.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that's a healthy thing, because we all want to see, we all love the same thing. We all love guitars and guitar shops.
Yeah, we have so much in common with those people too that like to not be friends, considering this small niche industry, and we happen to all be in it together.
Right.
Nobody knows the struggles of that person, like I do. Right. So it's like, man, just the fact that you're trying this, like, I know how hard you're working at this. So I like,
yeah,
it's kind of like, it's funny because on, the first time I came out and visited you guys, I also went to a couple other spots, and I got in the car, and of course, like, I'm constantly talking to Scott, like literally every single day for hours and hours. So I refer to him so often on the podcast. People are probably like, geez, stop talking about your boyfriend already. Like, but, I called him. I'm like, what's really interesting I've noticed is the retailers, because there's a slight disconnect, not as much as maybe in other industries, but there's a slight disconnect between the community of makers and the community of retailers. It's not like entirely separate, but like you were talking about how you're friends with other store owners in the area and beyond. All the pedal builders talk to each other pretty much to some degree. And a lot of the luthiers talk to each other. And I'm in this weird middle ground where I'm talking to content guys and brands. And like, so I'm a little more on that side. And I told Scott, I'm like, the retailers in every area are just like us. We're all talking to our group of buddies that all make stuff. They're all talking to each other too. And he's like, oh, that's not surprising at all. I'm like, no, it's really not. And I said, but they are all apparently going to Geoff's birthday party here later this evening. So, because he was like, really? I'm like, yeah, that's what I was told. So sounds like a bunch of them are headed out there.
Excellent.
Which is, it's, I think that speaks to, regardless of which side of this industry you're on, I think it attracts a certain type of person who, for the most part, there's obviously exceptions to every rule. They're pretty cool people who all kind of have the same shared goals, you know? And like I said, there are exceptions to that, but anybody that you want to hang out with, pretty much it's because like, oh, he's a chill dude, I want to go say hi to them. When you guys were going to come over, I was like, I've been excited about this since we planned it. I was like, this is going to be great. I can't wait.
Likewise. Yeah.
So one of the things I like to ask anybody, and especially since I haven't had such a deep pool of guests from your category on this show, is...
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
If somebody's thinking about maybe they want to start a store, there's not one in their area or whatever the reason, for whatever the reason is, like, to me, that seems extremely daunting. In fact, some of my family, when I started the podcast, because they didn't understand what a podcast was, it was somewhat new when I started, or at least new to the general
Right.
Is
public.
that going to be on AM or FM?
Yeah. They're like, what do you mean? And some of them literally said, well, why don't you just start a guitar store? And I just laughed. I was like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
I can start this with my cell phone and,
Right.
a subscription to a recording program and start pounding the pavement to get guests. Like, to start a guitar store, that is a significantly different endeavor, especially, I already had my family and was not in the industry at all at the time. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think you realize what you just said, how little sense that makes for me right now. But starting a store, if somebody wanted to start a store, like, where would you even start? Where would you suggest average Joe Blow who wants to start a store or is thinking about starting a store?
You got to spend a lot of time in your own head figuring out whether or not it is a good idea or the right choice for you. Because I think the stores that are going away or are struggling are the stores that were started or continue to exist because the person who owned it wanted to own a guitar store.
Mm-hmm.
So they made the store for themselves and just thought, if I think this is cool enough, if I surround myself with gear that I love, that's all it will take to get customers in the door. And that's the same thing is true with any other industry. Just because you can make some great cupcakes doesn't mean that as soon as you open the doors, you'll be flooded with customers.
Mm-hmm.
It just acquiring customers is a whole other, pounding the pavement to get guests sort of thing. But I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that people make is, I would say number one is that the only customer they ever had in mind was themselves. And so they made a store for themselves and then they opened the doors. And sure enough, that store is full of that one customer
right.
that they had in mind. But that's the only person that's in there ever is that one person. So I think that to some extent maybe used to work, years and years ago when the internet wasn't connecting everybody so wildly. So you could be the only one in your town. Yeah. But or it was a retirement. There are a lot of folks that like they made their fortune some other place and then they opened a store because it was how they wanted to spend their retirement and they don't care if anybody buys anything or not. And
that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
But if you're kind of young and ambitious, then you got to really decide, like, understand business. And that's kind of a steep curve. The other mistake that a lot of people make is from the other end, they come at it with a bunch of money thinking it's going to be easy. And that's the one that I see happen a lot nowadays is people made their fortune some other place. And they thought because they were successful somewhere else, and this is a small industry, whatever.
We can clean it up.
We can clean it up. And oh my gosh, they are out quick and lose a lot of money in a hurry. And that I've seen more frequently.
Does that happen at a retail level?
Yeah.
I've seen it with brands, but
it's happened at a retail level. Even locally, it's happened.
One notable example. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you kind of have to love the industry. I mean, really be passionate about it because
love it as it is and respect it as it is.
Yeah. And it's one thing to maybe want to, do something different with it and make it better, maybe try to improve it, maybe make it more accessible to people or whatever.
Yeah.
But to think that you're going to take just, some totally other business model, like from telecommunications or whatever, and come in and show people that it's like, man, it didn't really work like that, And, I mean, look, Best Buy is a great example, I mean, like they had a booming retail business and they were selling lots of washers and dryers and they just thought that if they cleared out a section of their stores and put guitars in there.
That and it looked nice.
It did.
They did
it
a really
great.
good job with it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like grand.
I actually don't
scale.
remember this. Why don't I remember this?
Oh, well, so check it out. I mean, this is...
Washington Square one had it right next to the GC.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And, but the thing of it was like, you can't just take the people from appliances and have them come in and know how to sell amplifiers,
right.
And so, they tried to take it on, applying the same sort of retail idea to that they would anything else, microwaves or cell phones.
And in a lot of other industries, it would have worked. It's just ours, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's sort of an outlier.
It's so relationship driven, and I think that's the thing. You probably noticed this if you're working more like with creating content or working with manufacturing. They can make a fantastic string, best string ever, and not sell a single pack without relationships, well-established relationships with outlets or dealers or players or something. Like
all of them,
all
really,
of them,
yeah,
all of the above, because it is so community driven. As much as it sometimes is, like all of us retailers talk to each other and all the content creators talk to each other, and we don't cross-pollinate that often. It's still you really have to have and sustain a solid relationship with manufacturers in order to get the gear in the first place if you're going to open your store. And it doesn't just happen. And that is a question. I mean, my kids still ask me this too, of like such and such a brand. Customers a lot of times will ask this thing that they notice a brand you don't carry. Why isn't this in your store? Why wouldn't they want their stuff in your store? And a lot of times it's like they do, but I think the perception is that like Gibson just sends us stuff.
Right.
And then we sell it for them. And there's and that's all there is. Like, gosh, the store is so great. If I made guitars, I wouldn't want my stuff hanging in there. And it's like, yeah, we would like to think that our store, it provides that sort of experience that all manufacturers want all their stuff in our store at all times. But the idea that just gear magically appears without an established relationship with a rep or with the company or whatever, and then you enter into a business agreement where you are signing dealer agreements and contracts with people for certain things to represent their brand a certain way, and stocking profiles and the way things are displayed. And so now you're talking about using your space in your store for their brand. You should think it through, you know, and not everything fits. You know, there's a reason there's not a whole wall of kazoos in our shop, because there are certain things we've decided we're just Well, there's certain things we just decided we're going to have a core competency, and it is going to be this, and it's not going to be that. We can't be everything to all people, or we'll end up being not anything to anybody.
That's true. Way true.
So we have to decide who we are, what fits us, and that has taken us a long time to kind of refine a self-identity of like, what kind of store do we want to have? Okay, we do want this type of gear displayed in this sort of way. Or we don't want that type of gear. And that does mean we're turning great companies away, and we're turning some customers away, because we're not going to be a keyboard shop. Keyboards are great. Love keyboards. We're not going to be 5-star keyboards yet.
Someday. No, that's true. I mean, we've experimented with some things that just weren't a good fit. I mean, we tried school band rentals once.
That's pretty much what Wally's does, I think.
Well, so, you know, I mean, in our case, I mean, just to sort of sum this up, like, you know, we were talking with some local band directors that were, you know, were friends of ours, and we knew them, and I said, you know, we could really use another rental, a local rental place, whatever. We looked into it. We partnered with another company that kind of helped us get into that. But as it turns out, they really didn't need us. You know, I mean, like those accounts were already being handled. Those relationships were already in place.
It was so relationship driven. They were loyal to the relationships they had with where they were getting instruments.
They were already being taken care of.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we also discovered that, like, you know, I didn't even know how to put a flute together. And there's a part of it too where, like, I wasn't really interested in being good at that, you know, because it wasn't my thing. And so that really, we learned a lot from that. It's just like, all right, we love guitars, and we want to learn more about guitars, and we want to talk about guitars, and you know, and all the stuff that we do. But we didn't have that sort of passion for school band rentals, and we would never be as good as the people that did.
Well, and it's one of those things too, where if it isn't your thing, it's not that you can't learn, right? But if you don't know anything about a flute, how do you know what's a good flute?
Well, right. Yeah.
You know,
if you can't really talk from experience, I mean, there's a part of it that was that, and there's a part of it that, I mean, like, yeah, we if it was an instant success and they really needed us to, then yeah, we might have changed our business, maybe brought in some people that were.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, really developed that department. I mean, you know, we want to help people make music at the end of the day. And so if that branches out into something else, great. But because they didn't need us and we weren't great at it, we kind of recognized what it would take to do that. meanwhile, we were already really good at what we were doing, and there was still room to grow. And
we noticed that we were paying attention to the band rentals that we were trying to launch off the ground at the expense of getting better at selling guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty soon, one part of your business is suffering to try and limp along something else that just isn't getting off the ground. And when you realize that like the customer demand for this isn't what we thought it was going to be, our ability to do this isn't what we thought it was going to be, and now we're starting to sacrifice part of our core competency for accommodating a thing that just is limping along. Why don't we just go back to focusing on who we are and what we do best?
Yeah.
And it's a hard decision to make, because it's like we wanted relationships with schools because we wanted to show that we were in full support of. We're not just here to sell stuff too, but we're here to support music education.
Mm-hmm.
And so engaging the schools was a huge part of that. And it was disappointing for us to say, we're going to have to let this one go and figure out another way to support local music, because it seemed like such an easy, direct way to say, look at us plugging straight into the band room, and so, but ultimately it just wasn't a good fit, and having to make that call is tough. But as soon as we did it, it was like, okay, yeah, right.
That was the right decision.
That was the right decision, and there was no second guessing that.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. It's like, it doesn't necessarily mean never. It doesn't necessarily mean you won't try it again at some point or find a way to make that work. But we've explored things in the past on our side that just didn't work out. Like we've invested some pretty heavily into like trying to do different aspects of making different products and things, and we're like,
it's nobody's fault.
It's not, and it sucks. It's never fun to admit that like this, and it's not even admitting defeat necessarily. It's just going like, right now this isn't going to work for us.
Yeah,
maybe we can revisit this at some other point. Mm-hmm. And we actually found that with one product line that it was kind of a side project, and then we just reanalyzed everything and go like, hey, you know how this was a side project? It's actually a lot bigger than we thought it was, and we should probably focus on it a little bit more. So you never know. But when we first started it didn't quite meet those criteria. It had to build over time to where, okay, now we can put some more focus on this particular category. So it's not ever if you have to turn something away or stop doing something, it doesn't mean it's permanent. And I think
it also doesn't mean it's a failure. I think that's the other thing too, is that like, for us, the success was in saying we learned a lot from doing this, and it's not a good fit. So we're going to say we're not going to do this anymore. But we learned so much from it. It's not a failure. It was a learning experience. And we learned so much from it that it was still valuable to have done. And now we know so much more about how to maybe better vet an idea before we invest a lot of time into it. But it's still saying no to the right things to say no to after that, from the experience that we learned and gained from saying, no, right, band rentals wasn't our thing at that time, probably saved us so much headache and, lost money down the road for these other opportunities that we said no to because of what we learned from doing that. So the value in having quote unquote failed at B&O really isn't a failure. We learned enough to not fail again in the same way. And that made us a stronger business. So a lot of times if you can, swallow your pride in the moment and not just say, all right, yeah, I sucked at that. I failed at that. And that must mean I'm a failure. If you can shelf that for a minute and be like, all right, yeah, that didn't work, but I can analyze this and say, here's all the reasons why it didn't work. So now moving forward, I've got so much more information to make my business better that I've made us better by failing at that.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And it's not a personal failure. We're not lacking anything. We now have more than we did before we tried something that didn't work. And so, I think that mindset has been a really key for all three of us. We're all willing to be wrong at the at the personal expense of I'm wrong, but if you're right, that's better for us. So let's go with your idea.
100%. Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about having access to like a network of people that can help you, and you made it sound as if it was also outside of the music space, having mentors or people that can help you with that. How did you guys go about finding these people and cultivating those relationships? Because I think that's extremely important to have some outside, as important as it is to identify what makes this industry unique. I think having some outside eyeballs from other places can be really helpful too. How did you find these people, and how do you?
Absolutely.
Maybe speak about the first couple, and then you can talk maybe about EO too, because that's a big one. But initially, one of the first things that we plugged into was Chamber of Commerce, which almost every local place has a Chamber of Commerce. And we got so engaged to the extent that until I moved to Taiwan, I was on the board of the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce. Okay.
No, I'm currently on the board of directors of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So engaging in the local area Chamber of Commerce gives you business trainings and connections and support and a business network kind of built in automatically. And usually there's a membership fee of some kind because they're usually structured as a nonprofit. So they've got a membership dues to do it. But past that, if you engage, the resources you get and the support you get is well worth the investment. And so local area Chamber of Commerce for anybody in anything, in any capacity, if you're starting a business, start there. And the other one for us is either the SBA or SBDC, Small Business Development Center. There are a lot of free or affordable business resources. And so I went to a small business retail management and advanced retail management classes, took a class once a week for 10 weeks, ended up teaching a couple of classes at it.
Nice.
There. And it comes with some direct business advising. And I sometimes call her my business shrink because so many times I have something that I just feel like I'm butting my head against the wall on something. And I have had made the same phone call to the same person for probably 8-9 years that we've had that relationship. And she's like a lawyer, consultant lawyer, like not at all in the MI scene, but she's a business advisor. And the SBDC and SBA, by extension, have so many business resources that if you're looking for access to capital, funding, grant writing, trainings for things, networking events, all that stuff is there. In a lot of cases, even specifically through pandemic resources on how to file for this financial aid from the government when all of that stuff was happening, how to fill out the forms or know if this applies to you, or what type of business entity should we even be, and what the heck is an S corp? Right. That's what a lot of that stuff is there to demystify for you, so that you can be good at running a guitar store and become a good business owner. But usually you get into the industry because you have a passion for like a product, right? Like again, back to cupcakes. You're a really great baker and you're make up, but like how to have employees is not your forte, right? But how to have employees is an important, from legal and other points of view, how to properly treat employees is something that a lot of people might have to learn. Yeah. And that's where from the early, that's one of the first places we stopped at was the Chamber of Commerce and took a class on how to write a business plan. For like 2 hours, and wrote our first business plan to sign up for, bank accounts and get a line of credit. And that was stop number one for us. Outside of, the three of us meeting with the founder, we started there and went to the Chamber of Commerce and took a class from SCORE. SCORE is also an acronym for some free resources and counseling and stuff. And all of the above is available for every type of business and every industry, usually in every, town that's big enough to have a Chamber of Commerce has all of the above available for free or affordable to get started. And I will keep going for hours on how much that has helped us, frame how to run our business and what to do. And from there, it's made some other connections that, Geoff is on the board for the now Washington County Chamber of Commerce, but doing a couple of other things as well.
There's we've gotten a lot from NAM itself, and some of their continuing education, and we've met a ton of like great retailers all around the world that, in some cases we become friends with them and we can bounce ideas off of them. And, so that's been wonderful. More recently, like the last it's been a little over a year. I got involved with this group called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's all, business owners of a certain size in terms of revenue. And then there's chapters all over the world, but I'm a part of the Portland chapter. And it's a lot of networking. It's also these small groups, 6 to 9 people. They get together in these forums once a month and just talk about their businesses and how things are going. And if you're running into a challenge, there are other people that understand what it's like to sign the other side of the check. That understand kind of the stress and the complications that come with that. And, kind of experience share. And so, if you've got a question about something that you're dealing with, likely there's somebody in that group who could say, I ran into something similar a couple of years ago, and here's kind of how I dealt with it, and here's how it happened. It's not advice so much as just like kind of experience sharing. And that's been great, because a lot of what we're doing in terms of like trying to scale up and trying to accommodate more business, but not lose the feel, right? Like to have the same kind of customer service and the same kind of experience for people, but to be able to deal with just a lot more people. That presents some areas like, I can sell a guitar to anybody, feels like,
Right.
I feel really good about that. But there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with now that have nothing to do with guitars. They're
Right.
just fundamentally like business issues that need to be kind of dealt with. And, your approach matters and the follow through matters. So that's been good. It's been nice for us to not feel so alone, and like, who do we turn to? How do we learn this thing? Dealing with, whether it's HR issues or again, scaling up,
here's one that like almost everybody, any example, no matter who you are in what capacity, but somebody trying to start their own guitar store, how to read a lease.
Right.
A commercial lease is an awful document written in some kind of legalese, King James.
Horrible.
It's 22 lines and it's one sentence, right?
Yeah.
So how to read a lease, like there are all of the above are places that you can go to, like, okay, we have this thing and I don't understand any of it. Who's signed a lease that looks like, and somebody else be like, oh yeah, we're on our 4th one, so I'm very familiar with this.
Yeah,
and
that kind of stuff is
they're
great.
a nightmare.
And someone else would be like, okay, I have a lawyer that specifically deals in commercial leases. I'll give you their phone number. And suddenly you're not alone in trying to figure out how to not get screwed on your lease. And because they're predatory.
Very.
Definitely. Yeah. They'll put stuff in there. I mean, we've seen stuff where it's like.
Our one at Tannisborn wasn't allowed. It was the playing of music, like playing music was not allowed on our lease.
You were like, well, that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But had we not read it or known where to look for it, it would have been like, okay, let's see. So the public performance of music count, including like stereos and amplifiers, not allowed.
Yeah. So we had to go back at that. There was a piece of language in there that said that in the event that they wanted to move us, this was like in a strip mall. If they wanted to move us to a different place, they could at any time, and we would be paying the same amount, like the square footage, rate for it, for whatever size they put us into.
But the moving expenses were on us.
Right. And so, so the thing of it was like, we were occupying at the time, like 3,000 square feet. Theoretically, if Rite Aid, that was maybe, 15,000 square feet, went out, they could just move us in there and we'd be paying the same amount per square foot.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would destroy our business.
Of course.
But it was in there.
Or shoehorn us into 1,000 square foot sandwich shop that had just
a different
gone out.
problem.
Right. Yeah, a different problem.
Yeah. So if you don't have somebody that's there to look at it and say, hey, what this means to you is like, we can read it. I know what the words mean, but how does it apply to us?
Yeah.
Like, what are the ramifications of that? What are some scenarios that could happen that we need to be on guard for? And so we were able to, then go back and say, well, you're going to have to strike this, you're going to have to strike that, whatever. But yeah, that kind of support is really important. I think, having a good business plan too, because if you can answer the questions that are in that, it will lead you to either think, yeah, this is a good idea, we should move forward, or in answering those questions, you realize like, maybe this isn't such a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's probably that. I would say that's probably one of the best tools that you would do yourself in starting any business. And this would go beyond starting a guitar store anywhere, whatever.
Back to your cupcake example.
Mm-hmm. But just the mistake, and to be honest, we still make this mistake. But you see a problem, see a situation, and it looks familiar enough that you're like, I know what I'm doing. But having to walk through writing a business plan for something and actually answer those questions, you're like, oh, actually, like once I looked this up, the answer is different than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount that you learn about yourself and about your business model, you find weaknesses about the competition,
the area,
all of doing that is like, I went through most of that the first time we wrote it. I ended up writing most of the thing because I had to, run out all the little numbers and make a budget, right? And come up with projections for this budget and do all sorts of things. Like, man, we don't own the place yet. How am I supposed to project income for the next 3 years for a business I don't have?
Right.
But you got to figure it out, because when you write down what you think you're going to do and look at the bottom number at the end and it says minus how many thousands of dollars, you're like, oh, shoot, like there's some, if I guess wrong or I get this wrong, like there's some issues this causes, and I need to go back and figure out where those weaknesses are.
Mm-hmm.
But on the day-to-day, we go in and like, especially now that we're so many years into this, like we walk it through the door and it's like, we know how to do this, right? And like, we know what we're doing. And a lot of times you can just sort of assume that your experience or your knowledge will answer questions that maybe the data doesn't, would tell a different story, and forcing yourself to do that, answer those questions, write stuff out, journal things, write a proposal, write a business plan. Business plan is almost, I don't know if people are requiring it anymore. It used to be you couldn't get a loan or a line of credit or anything without one.
Well, we found it useful
depends.
for that
it's
reason.
One of those it depends things these days.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have gotten like some small ones for this that I didn't have hardly any requirements, but there's then some bigger ones for Stringjoy that have lots of requirements. So
sure,
it really varies a lot more than I think it used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think, back in the early 2000s, I remember looking at, it sounds weird that a kid my age would be looking at this stuff, but I remember wanting to start various businesses and like, well, you should get a loan. Oh, how do I do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to write a business plan. I'm 14,
Right.
what is all this?
And having
a lot of questions for lemonade stand.
Right. Yeah, I know, right? But having written several for us now, it is interesting. Usually when I go to refresh the thing, I start with the last one I did, and like, oh my gosh, that is how we used to do that. Wow, we've changed a lot.
Yeah. Is it ever a thing where you're like, maybe we should revisit that? I forgot that we used to do that. Or is it like, I'm glad we don't do that anymore?
We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. all the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblintsaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
It might not be a like, we should go back, or I'm glad we don't, but more just a like, oh, I can see the direction we're headed more clearly now because I kind of, dropped the breadcrumbs along the way. So now it's like, okay, yeah, cool. We're headed in this direction. And that is the direction we want to go. So cool. We're doing it. Right. But I think a lot of times you forget, what it really does for me a lot of times is show how much we've accomplished since the last time I documented what we were about and how we were doing things. Because a lot of it you have to write down, like, here's how we're going to address this situation, or how we're going to reach these customers, or how we're going to do certain things. And our strategies are so much more fleshed out, or, we're so much more clear-headed now than we were, that it's like, oh, cool. It's neat to see that that's where I was then and where I am now. And I'm show the development or the growth, either individually or just as a business model. Like we're refining this thing in such a better way that it's kind of nice retrospectively to look back and read on some of those things and say, okay, cool. Now that I'm going to write this for today, I would say all this different stuff, and it shows so much growth. That's more what I find than like a missed opportunity or whatever. It's just like, oh, cool, we've grown as people and as a business,
Yep. Well, I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier, because I know my perspective, and it's changed a little bit over the years, and the listeners can confirm this. But NAMM as an entity. So early on, I used to do a lot of consulting work with mostly effects companies, but like a lot of MI builders and stuff. And one of the main things was always like, should we do NAMM? And my answer to that was, well, why do you think you should do NAMM? Are you going to NAMM for what reason? Are you going to NAMM to try to meet with dealers and network with people and grow the retail side of your business? Or are you still so small that you need to focus on your direct and just building your brand overall? Because that was always a question for people. They just knew that NAMM was a thing that you were quote unquote supposed to do. And so my response was like, do you have a more effective way that you could spend $10,000 to help your business? Because that's going to be the minimum that you're going to spend to do the show as a brand. And it's pretty consistent still, even to this day. It's a little more now probably, but that's a rough number.
Like the like purpose of NAMM, or the vibe, like the feeling of going to NAMM, because it feels like everybody has been asking themselves this question now for the last 3 or 4 years. How would you answer that now compared to?
I still answer it the same way. Because for us,
it's like, what's your ROI going to be?
Not necessarily. No, it's what are your goals, and you may not be able to quantify that in a immediate dollar
revenue. Yeah.
So, and some of these guys' goals, like, I'm just trying to still build my brand, and still like they're just getting started, sort of, or maybe they're at maybe a midway point, and they're still needing to just focus on their marketing strategies and stuff. And for that, I'm like, well, then you probably shouldn't go to NAMM yet, because I've seen those people go and sit there at their booth and just sit there at their booth the whole time.
Yeah.
And not really, they're not out there trying to engage. They're just kind of like, surely someone's going to stop by, and they don't, But for us, we kind of got to, and then I think there's 2 points. There's those guys. Then there's the huge brands that don't necessarily need to go, and sometimes have made the calculation not to, because they're the Fenders of the world. Everyone knows who they are, and if you want them, you're going to get in touch with them, type of thing. Then there's this weird middle ground where we found ourselves, where it didn't used to make a lot of financial sense, and we kind of had most of the networking. We could do most of the networking through other ways, by going to other events or simply calling our friends, and like we've been around. But now we're at a point where we do need to do NAMM, and my tune has completely changed from what it used to be, where we are getting a lot of value out of it. We're going and we're really doing it. There's multiple people at the booth out there saying hello to people, trying to introduce ourselves, trying to,
And how would you quantify the value in relationships, or are you actually seeing
both
revenue increase from it?
It's both. And it's not necessarily
you're
immediate.
writing up orders at the show. Is that
So we didn't even write as many orders at the show, but we definitely got orders that came from the show. This year we'll be doing it a little bit differently, where we will be trying to take orders at the show. But it was more about the networking and like who all did we sat down, who all did we meet, and how did that pencil out 6 months later?
So to me, that was like I would still consider that an ROI thing, because I wouldn't just say it's a dollar number thing. It's like your ROI there is relationships,
sure,
right?
Yeah,
that you cultivated from having gone. And I do think that is where like the value of NAMM for me certainly is that now. Like I go there and it's like it's going to be cool to see gear, but honestly, what NAMM exists for me now is the number of people that I'm going to meet with face to face in a 3-day period is unrivaled by any other place I'm going to go or event I'm going to have. And, Zoom is one thing, but NAMM is another. But for me, it's not, that is what it is. It's now more of a face-to-face networking thing of like, what relationships am I going to build or grow face-to-face from having gone there. And that's going to turn into what down the road?
Yes,
right?
Exactly. I mean, we even had the first day we got there, a guy walked up to Scott and I didn't know what they were talking about. And he came back. He's like, well, that solved a problem I've been looking for like 6 months. It's like just a sourcing thing. Yeah. And he's like, and some of those people you don't really want to talk to. It's like, no, I don't need your carbon fiber, whatever. Like, I'm not like, you're nice to everybody, but sometimes there are people there, unfortunately, that you don't necessarily need to spend hours and hours with.
Right.
You be respectful to everybody, but I think we all know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
But like that wouldn't have ever happened. This guy walked up and he's like, yeah, I've been looking for that. I haven't been able to find it. I now have the guy that can supply that for me. Done. Like that almost took care of the show right there.
Right.
So,
and that is ours, like every year, because it's such a grind to go there. And especially now, because it takes me 6,000 miles to get there now.
Yeah.
It is every year. I'm like, I look forward to it and I book my ticket. And then as the weeks come up, I'm like,
oh,
am I really going to do this again? What am I even going to, and literally this time, like my plane landed, I spent half a day catching up on the jet lag. And the first person I talked to was like, okay, that was worth it. I'm glad I came.
Yep.
Because I got something out of it that I wasn't going to get any other way. I had a face-to-face with somebody that wasn't going to happen any other way. And that 45 minutes was worth 20 hours of travel time one way just to meet with this person for 45 minutes. And now I've got something value add to my business in a way that we'll find out in 5-10 years what that got us. But the groundwork that was laid in a 45-minute conversation on day one before the show even started, it was Wednesday. The show hadn't even started yet. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I was here. It was worth it.
All right. Right. That took care of it.
That took care of it.
Yep. So that was going to be like the longest way to ask this question. I think you answered it partially, but what specifically as a retailer are you looking for when you guys go? Are you looking for who's making the biggest splash, or are you just looking for like, what people did I meet that impressed me? Like, what are you guys looking for from your perspective? Like, what should brands be trying to do? If there's pedal builders or insert luthier here, whatever, listening to this right now, knowing that you guys have a successful store, what does a store like yours look for in a brand when they go there? If you've never heard of them before, you just happen to walk up.
Well, we often will make appointments with our biggest vendors, existing vendors, but we try to leave some free range time, right? Because oftentimes we'll discover something that we didn't know about and we just happen to walk past it. And, like, for example, I mean, we just, at this most recent NAMM, I believe it was the first time that we saw this humidification system that we bought. And we've now installed into the store that allows for humidification throughout the building.
Oh,
that's plumbed into it, so we don't have to fill up humidifiers.
10 years of spending Thanksgiving morning driving to the shop.
It's something you didn't know
now a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, because we have to maintain the humidity for the stock, right?
Of course,
so it doesn't get too dry. And, when we do have days off, like for holidays, right? We're not going to ask our employees to come in on Christmas, but one of the three of us
Has to go there.
to do it in the morning, and one of us has to do it in the evening. And it wasn't just for us. I mean, it does a lot of cool stuff. But the point being, we didn't know that existed, and it has nothing to do with guitars. I mean, it does, obviously, but
or that a system like that existed we could afford. We obviously knew, that like Taylor's got humidity control and they're massive, but not one that we could attain.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like we always discover some products that we like, that's kind of cool, that maybe fills a niche that we had an empty spot for, or is a nice complement to what we're already doing. Certainly to further develop relationships, with existing vendors. Same way. It's just nice to meet people. It's nice to see the stuff in person. I mean, we didn't get into this to buy guitars off spreadsheets, right?
Right.
And we want to make sure that whatever it is that we're selling, we feel like has value, and it's a very tactile experience. It's one thing to read the specs and say, well, based on this, it should be pretty cool. You get it, man. You play guitar. It takes 30 seconds to picking something up to go, Yeah. If it's not for you, you'll see it right away and go, oh, this wasn't exactly it. Not really what I thought it was going to be. And then there's a continuing education side of it. Like there's been a lot of cool, seminars and classes that are available at that are talking specifically about inventory management or, handling your lesson program or whatever, where the best people in the industry are just telling you how they do it. And we actually did one of those.
Nice.
Which was cool. After attending a lot of them and getting a lot of value out of it, we were asked to do one, a couple of years ago.
I think collectively we pretty much have attended every single NAMM class there was to attend at least once.
Yeah. I mean, it's good information. So, there's a lot that comes out of that, and we feel like it's a really great experience. We've expanded. Originally, it was just Jeremie and I, and then it was the three of us. And the fact that the three of us were able to get out for 4 days and none of us began. I mean, there was a time when one of the three of us opened the door in the morning and closed it at night. And so, the last couple of years, we've been bringing our sales manager with us. And the fact that we could get 4 people out of the shop
for a week.
Better than 6 days or whatever.
I can totally relate. This last NAMM that we did, I think, was the first one where Scott could leave and know that everything's just still running.
That's a big accomplishment.
It's like banana. He's like, orders are still going out, things are still happening, and like it's all being handled, by a competent person whose entire job it is to handle that.
That
stuff.
is so significant as a business owner to get your shop to the place.
We were talking about that when we were there this year, of just like what an accomplishment that is.
Yeah.
And how far it had come. Because for Jeremie and I to get out of the office for 3 days to go down there, and we had to, when we first took over the shop, those relationships were really Ken's, and we needed to go down there and meet with people and make sure that they understood that although it was a new ownership, these are the same people that have been working there for years, that have already been managing the business. And that while the check is going to come from a different account, it's a different corporation, it's still 5-star guitars. And we're, there's nothing to worry about here.
Right.
And so, I remember that first year, that was the message. And we must have taken 40 or 50 meetings, half hour at a time, just back to back, trying to, instill some confidence in people that like, we know what we're doing. This is going to be great. No need to change anything, but that account is going to change hands, right? Like, with D'Addario, like, well, now it's 5SG LLC instead of 5-Star Guitars Corp or whatever, and to now be in it where we have the luxury of more time, and we we also recognize the value in just being able to walk around and discover something we don't know.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that's the value.
I think also I feel what you're telling me, Scott, saying about, leaving for a week, because it was, that is my existence now of like, I live on the other side of the planet, having to trust that so much stuff is getting handled the way that I needed to. And the amount of trust in your employees that you have to have, and the amount of hiring good means that it's just got a building full of good people that work for them then that can handle things in the right way in a timely manner and communicate things back to you that need to be done, and is still executing your vision while you're away. I'm not completely disengaged, but the time zone makes it near impossible to stay connected on a daily basis.
Totally.
And so to have two business partners that are doing that is amazing. The fact that they have been able to
business partner lottery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I want it.
I can relate.
Yeah, sure.
I really, really can.
Yeah, and so to be able to, it's a test of yourself to leave and trust that it'll be okay. Things that you are so. I have such a direct hand in so much stuff. And when I came back here I've been back for the summer. Like coming back, I'm there on a daily basis, and I'm by the end of the day, I almost lose my voice. I'm talking so much to people, engaged directly in so much stuff that it just feels like getting ripped away. Then to go fly back and like, okay, now what? I get 2 hours on Zoom on Tuesday morning now to talk to these guys, and have to figure out a completely different way of running the business and not fail everybody because I left.
Yeah.
And so, it's we couldn't have pulled this off a couple years ago. And so I'm super fortunate to have the staff and the partners that I've got to be able to do this. It would have fallen apart, I think, any other way.
It's one of those things you come to rely on people for so many different things. And then as you grow and as you try to keep this thing on the tracks, you realize that you can't do everything. You can't, you wear all the hats for so long that you forget that you gotta give some other people the hats at some point, because they'll be better at that specific aspect of it than you will be trying to juggle everything at the same time.
Absolutely.
But it's a weird transition, like you said. That's why it feels like such an accomplishment to have been able to get over that hump, because it takes so long. And then you're like, oh, I hope they take care of my baby the way I want it taken care of. But getting over that hump is it should be a goal for everybody that owns a business, I think, is. And it's not to I want to retire and ride off into the sunset and never think about it again. That's not really the point. The point is a successful business doesn't require the owner to do everything all the time.
My experience has actually almost been the opposite of that too, because being removed, the daily functions that I no longer even could if I wanted to engage in or control or help or whatever. Okay, now I'm over here. Well, I don't think I've even mentioned it yet. I live in Taiwan.
Right.
So temporarily, but I live in Taiwan for a couple of years. We'll be back in a few years.
Yeah.
And while I'm over there, I had to let go of and delegate so many different things functionally that now I'm over there and I'm like, okay, I still own this thing the same amount, and I want to demonstrate the same. I have to add value somehow.
Yes.
So what am I going to do from this far away? And then I'm busier than I was trying to add value to the business, filling things out, vetting new opportunities, trying to learn entirely new segments of the market or the industry or in industries in general. Just the amount that I have started, the number of projects that I have now, the number of spinning plates just increased, even though I sort of departed and all the ones that I had, now somebody else is handling most of those. I'm now plugged into so many other things and working on so many other things. It's like, okay, cool. Now there's even more opportunities for us somehow, by me stepping back or stepping away for a bit, but not disengaging. There's now more opportunities for us to grow and do things and move in new directions than there was had I not had this. It's it's not a hiccup. It's quite a disruptive thing to up and move to a foreign country and still try and run your business from there. And so the fact that we've turned that into an opportunity is a testament to who we have, on staff and who we work with. But it also is just, I'm kind of wired that way anyways. Like this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. It's not gonna go any other way than it's gonna be good. And so figuring out how it's gonna be good took us a while to do, but we're excited about how it's going. At least I am. I don't know. Maybe I'm stressing you out. But.
No, actually,
are you glad I'm gone? Like, man, it's so much quieter in here.
It's so much easier when he's out here.
No, the reality of that situation was, it's like, well, okay, how do we make this into an opportunity?
The look on his face when I told him, like, okay, my wife got a job, we're getting transferred to Taiwan.
Yeah, it's a temporary thing, and I was
what did you say?
You're like, how temporary?
Which state is that in?
Yeah. That's just in Washington, right?
It's out of Flagstaff, right? Yeah. I mean, it's been really good. And so very quickly after this sort of, the initial shock, right? It was like, okay, well, how do we make this work? And, Jeremie working remotely a couple of days a week during COVID, just for childcare purposes. His kids were home. The technology was there. We could do it. A lot of what he was doing as CFO really he didn't need to be in the office.
Sure.
So like, we made it work, and we've been able to do a lot of really cool stuff as a result. I mean, we really did see the change as an opportunity, but now it's kind of one of those things where we know that there's an end date to that, overseas, boots on the ground, 5-star guitars in Taiwan. And so, we have that time to cement relationships and to do what we're planning to do, or to find out firsthand that it's not going to work, and to know, like, okay, well, this, not now. And so, I'm thrilled. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do, which we can't really talk about much, but in our skunk works of different things that we're working on, like, it's pretty amazing. And
it turned it from being like, how long are you going to be gone, and when are you going to be back, and how long do we have to endure this, like, trip abroad, to, holy cow, we've got 3 years to figure this out. We better get moving, because the door's going to close soon, and we better figure this out.
Oh no, you're only gone for 3 years.
You're only gone for 3 years. Yeah, exactly. And so I that knowing that happened, that our shift in mentality went from like, how long is it going to be, to like, oh my gosh, how long is it going to be? Was like, okay, cool, we can do this. Like that, the sense of relief that I felt knowing that, like, okay, we shifted this to, we really do all think this is going to be an opportunity for us. Now, like, the pressure's not on for me to, like, not let things break, but the pressure's on to, like, take full advantage. And so,
I didn't see a bathroom in here.
Oh, no, there's not.
So is it a good time to take 5?
Sure.
Speaking of which, I think I'm just going to move that thing back.
All right, we took a little break there, but I feel like it's a good point to, man, that was a really great conversation, first of all. Thank you guys for coming by. It's cool to, like, be able to connect with people on kind of that side of the, talk a little more businessy stuff, because I don't get to do that with as many people as I would like. So it is, and I know for a fact that a lot of the listeners are builders and small business owners themselves. So I usually get pretty good feedback when the topics turn that way. So thank you guys for that. That was really great.
Anytime.
Yeah. But as you're aware, I do ask a couple of the same questions at the end of every episode. But before I do that, I like to give the guests a chance to take the stage. They can shout out their grandma. They can plug anything they want to plug. They can say anything they want to say to a couple thousand people right now. And we go from there.
5starguitars.com. That's FIVESTAR. Guitars, plural. Actually, yeah. So every once in a while, people get that wrong. Like 5-star guitar. It's 5-star guitars. Many guitars.
Many guitars. So many.
Unless they've had a really good sales, there might only be one left.
They sold all of them.
They sold all but
one.
Except the one.
there's just this
I
one.
will be so happy if I get back to the shop.
Then
and that is the case.
temporarily we'll change it.
Yeah, there's just one Hondo left in the store.
Right. Like, oh. Yeah.
Let's see. Shout out to I'll shout out to my sister is running through her. She just finished her 3rd round of chemo.
Oh,
And
whoa.
she's crushing it. She's doing amazing.
That's
So,
awesome. Wow. I'm so glad to hear she's doing well. That's amazing. That's a good shout
It
out.
is. Yeah, it is. It's been a long road for her and been really hard for us to be away while she's going through it. And she's amazing. She's my new idol. I want to
Awesome.
be like her when I grow up. She's tough.
What's her
And
name?
Jessica.
Jessica. Shout out Jessica. All right. Well,
we should shout out our own employees too.
Well, all right,
Like
go for it.
look, so just all that stuff that we just talked about and all this growth and then the whole history of the shop and where it's going to is very much due to some great work from a lot of people over the years, but our current staff is fantastic.
mm-hmm.
And they're making it happen. So, we just couldn't do it without them.
They are great. I can speak to that. They you go in there and you want to talk to these people. So it's a good store.
We are so lucky to have us. Yeah, that you can I feel being their employer that when they walk in the door they care.
Mhm.
And not every business owner has that.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
And I would love to just sit here and take credit for that. But I think we at least we attracted or picked the right people,
Mhm.
that we just, with the buy-in that we have for them believing in the shop and the vision and that they're working together and in it together is, I've never worked at a place and I've certainly never run a place that had a staff full of people that had each other's backs and had the buy-in that they do. They love where they are.
Mhm.
And we had, so Geoff mentioned the 25th anniversary this year. We had a staff party that we threw for current and former employees. And I don't think I've ever worked at a place that if they threw an anniversary party for the business 6-7 years after I left that place, I'd go to the party.
Right.
And they all came.
Yeah. We had people travel from as far away as northern Idaho to
Wow.
come back and visit. It was touching. It was cool.
That's
you
very
know?
cool.
I mean, it's a big part of our lives, and it's cool. It says a lot that it's a big part of theirs.
Mhm.
That they would choose to spend their time that way.
Definitely.
So,
And I think that they do that for each other then, like they got to work together on a day-to-day basis. And like we said, it's hard,
Mhm.
to do this. So I think going through that together and the type of people that they all are, it's awesome. I definitely am grateful every day for the crew that we've got running the place. And so I'm glad that you noticed, going
Yeah.
in. I super appreciate you saying so, that going into the shop and feeling welcome and feeling taken care of, that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, absolutely. 100%. Well, guys, here comes the classic questions, the end of the show questions. Here we go. Buckle up. Here we go. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
I'll go first.
yeah, go for it.
Metal Zone. It was the first one I ever
Yeah.
had. And I went into a small guitar store and went in and said, I want to sound like Eddie Van Halen, and here's how much money I have. And I walked out with an MT2.
I like that. That's great. Here you are, son.
30 years later, I still don't sound like Eddie Van Halen, but at least I had my first Boss pedal.
I like that.
That's my first pedal ever. So
That's super cool. I like the MT2. I know it gets a little bit of flack, but I actually love it. In fact, right over here, the fine folks. Oh, I should probably talk in the microphone. The fine folks at Box hooked me up with the murdered out version.
I love it.
Yeah, it sounds the same, but it's black, so it's better.
That's it's not the Wazacraft. It's just a
No, it's just a
Murdered
blacked out
Nice.
metal zone. They even put the little silver screw in there for fun. So yeah, thanks, boss.
right on.
Well done. That looks really cool.
I have this blues driver, the BD2,
Oh yeah.
that I bought. It's got to be like 2001, maybe. I mean, right around the time that I got the job at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before the Wazacraft option, and one of our customers modded it for me. Did like the Brent Mason mod.
Oh.
And it's amazing. I mean, I thought it was cool before, but I think for sentimental reasons too, like that particular pedal, I've used it on a ton of recordings and live for all these years, and it's cool. I dig the Boss stuff.
Very nice. Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan. I love Boss stuff. All right, final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Like brand or toppings?
You get as detailed as you want to get.
All right, look, I'm happy to address this. I'm glad you mentioned it because I've worked at a number of pizza places.
All right, perfect.
I feel like I'm a bit of a connoisseur.
All right, go on.
So
this is going to be hard to follow, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually thought about this a lot on my own time. And so here's the thing. I feel like the best pizza that I've ever had was at this place called Flying Pie in Boise.
In Boise?
But see, there is the same folks kind of split off and started the ones here in the Portland area.
Okay.
And they're real similar. But I like everything about it. Just sort of the approach to the crust, the sauce, the topping selection, and the amount. It's plentiful.
It is plentiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's probably the best pizza I've ever had. And again, been lots of places. I've been on the inside.
On the inside
a lot
track.
of places. And I think that's just like the best thing going.
I had Scott from Scotty's Pizza Parlor here at the Shred Shed doing the podcast here a few weeks ago. And he runs one of the best pizza shops in Portland for sure. Scotty's Pizza Parlor is legit. But it's happening a few times. I've had another Scott Wiener from Scott's Pizza Tours on the podcast as well. He does pizza tours in New York City. He's also there. It's an interesting thing I'm noticing between restaurateurs and specifically pizza shop owners, and they also tend to play guitar or have some sort of musical. They record music or something. It's kind of a weird crossover I didn't expect, but hey. I'm like, bring on some of the best pizza shops in Portland. Come on over, baby. Let's do it. We'll record podcasts.
Win-win.
Yes. So, Jeremy, what's your take?
In general, I just like the more stuff on it, the more I like it. So
Flying Pie does help.
Supreme me out. The supremest supreme that ever supremed is usually what I do. There is to the point, the one pizza place that we found in Taiwan that we like is called Pizza Rock.
Okay. Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And
what's it like?
It's pretty good. It's like a wood-fired oven sort of thing. We've actually never been in one. We Uber Eats it to our apartment and get it delivered, but it travels well. And I like spicy stuff too. So my favorite there is a chicken with jalapeno.
All right.
So that's the one.
All right. I like it. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Maybe we'll slide over to Patreon. We'll see what kind of weird stuff we can get into.
Let's do it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. For Jeremy and Geoff, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks. Like I said on the intro, this Patreon episode is quite the... we get real weird with it. And if you like weird, please head over to patreon.com/tonemob, where for $5 a month, you will get extra episodes? No, there won't be extra episodes, but there will be ad-free episodes and extra episodes every week beamed right to your ears. And it is just $5 a month. But if that isn't in the cards for you right now, if you could send this episode out to somebody you think would get something out of it, somebody you think would really enjoy it, somebody who this would help, it would really mean the world to me. I know I ask for that every single episode, but it seriously is the biggest thing you can do to help support the show. It's get it in front of more people, because without you, this show doesn't really exist, as it turns out. So thank you all so much for hanging out. Thank you for everything. And I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well.
As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.
This is the story of Whitney Houston.
This is the story of Kurt Cobain.
Of George Michael, of Otis Redding, of Amy Winehouse, of Michael Hutchence, Bob Marley. This is the story of Prince.
It's a new podcast series
about how they died, why they died, and why we're still talking about them so long after.
It's like nothing you've ever heard before.
It's storytelling.
But it's more than that, because rock stars,
they tell us how we feel. They change our mood.
They change the clothes we wear, the people we hang out with,
the way we remember things.
It's them who give us those ludicrous moments, the ones where you're
jumping around, singing your heart out, feeling understood.
And it's those moments we'll help you remember, the ones you're thinking about right now.
That feeling.
It's
coming soon from Crowd Network.
Just search for Death of a Rock Star on your podcast app.
And subscribe now.